Roy Moore pauses while speaking during a news conference on November 16 in Birmingham, Alabama. Drew Unraveling, Getty Images. A month ago, when Roy Moore was accused of having pursued teenage girls while in his 30s, he equivocated. "Do you remember dating girls that young?" Sean Hannity asked him. Moore hedged, "Not generally, no. If I did, I'm not going to dispute anything, but I don't remember anything like that." Hannity asked Moore about Debbie Gibson, who said she had dated Moore when she was 17 and he was 34. "I don't remember going out on dates," said Moore. "I knew her as a friend. If we did go out on dates, then we did." Moore's uncertainty troubled voters and Republican politicians. Some said his denials weren't strong enough, so Moore tightened his story. On November 27, he declared, "I do not know any of these women." 2 days later, he insisted, "I do not know any of these women, did not date any of these women." Moore began to accuse the women of fabrication, malice, immorality, and political gamesmanship. This counterattack may have saved Moore's candidacy. He has given his fans what they crave, a crusade against evil. He has also impressed President Trump, earning Trump's endorsement and aid from the Republican National Committee. Roy Moore denies it, Trump told reporters on November 21. "He totally denies it. But the harder line comes at a cost, it's demonstrably false." Moore knows these women, and they have evidence to prove it. If Moore is fully investigated by the Senate Select Committee on Ethics, he'll be exposed not just as a former predator, but as a current slanderer. 21. In an interview with Scott Beason on the Alabama cable network, Moore said his accusers weren't just mistaken about what had happened to them or who had done it. He said the incidents they described had never occurred, and were made up. On November 27, Moore called their accusations malicious. On November 29, he falsely implied that they had agreed to appear in TV ads against him, proving that they weren't real victims. "As a former prosecutor, judge, and chief justice, I've handled numerous rape cases, abuse cases, and sexual misconduct cases. And I have never had one victim in any of those cases who would come after 40 years, only 2.5 weeks out of a general election, to appear in public political advertisements. It just doesn't happen." On Monday, in an interview on American Family Radio, Moore added that Beverly Nelson, who had accused him of forcibly groping her when she was 16, knew her account was false. Moore said her story was made up just to defame my character. He said of the accusations against him, "It just shows you how immorality permeates every aspect of our society." Moore's surrogates, following his cue, have piled on. In national TV interviews, Moore's spokeswoman, Janet Porter, has called Nelson a fraud and the yearbook forger lady. Porter says another accuser, Lee Horfman, gave an Academy Award performance when she described on NBC how Moore had molested her at the age of 14. Another Moore supporter, Alabama Rep. Mo Brooks, calls Nelson a liar and claims that she'd suppressed the evidence involved in her story. These attacks look forceful, but they expose Moore to investigation for an ongoing pattern of lies. 21. Moore said Nelson knew she had a divorce filed before me, when he was a circuit judge in 1999, and that she was therefore lying when she claimed not to have had any contact with him since 1978. Everybody in a divorce case knows who the judge is. Moore told Beason. Moore asserted that the case came to me, and after several months, she asked for it to be dismissed. This account by Moore is demonstrably false. Court records show that the case was before another judge, that Nelson asked that judge to delay a hearing, and that 5 weeks later, when Nelson asked the court to dismiss the case, Moore's assistant stamped Moore's name on the dismissal order as a formality, only because he was the circuit judge. 15. After Nelson displayed her 1977 high school yearbook with an inscription apparently by Moore, he suggested that someone had tampered with the inscription, in noting that the date and location information appended to it were written in a different style. But soon, Moore's surrogates began to allege that the whole inscription was a forgery. On November 28, Brooks said Nelson had forged the "Love, Roy Moore" part of the inscription, precisely the part that Moore hadn't initially challenged, since it obviously matched Moore's handwriting on other documents. Brooks also claimed that 7 of Moore's accusers had presented testimony or statements that conflict with Horfman's story. No such conflicting statements existed. Porter, Moore's spokeswoman, has lied with abandon. He claims that on CNN, Nelson's attorney, Gloria Allred, wouldn't deny that Nelson's yearbook is a forgery. That's a gross misrepresentation. What Allred demanded was a Senate investigation, under penalty of perjury, in which independent experts would compare the yearbook to known samples of Moore's handwriting. Porter also claims that Kaufman's mother disputes her arguments and her case. Her own mother doesn't believe